Let's bring you this conversation now, and it's on foreigners being responsible for the rate of unemployment in the country. And this conversation is heating up. It comes after the EFF embarked on a mission to visit the hospitality sector to see how many foreign nationals were employed. The IFP followed the trail and submitted a private members' bill to Parliament to regulate the employment of foreign nationals across all sectors and not just restaurants. Now, Human Rights Watch group Amnesty International is calling on politicians to stop blaming that unemployment crisis on foreigners in South Africa. We've got Thembisa Fakude, who's a senior researcher for Africa-Asia Dialogues, to help us unpack the situation. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Thembisa. And there are a lot of discussions that happen around foreign nationals and their participation in the South African economy. But perhaps break down some of the myths that currently are existing out there in terms of how many foreign nationals are actually employed in the formal sector.
Well, first of all, these kind of actions are commonplace during this time of the year. January is often experiencing the rise of xenophobic actions and ultranationalism actions, not only in South Africa, but in other parts of the world, because of the economic downturn and strain that tends to be much more concentrated during this time of the year. So that's the first point. And it's not really true that the foreigners are taking jobs in South Africa. Yes, you have a lot of employers who continue to violate the labor laws by employing people from other countries with an intention, of course, of exploiting them, particularly within the hospitality industry. But the danger here is when you have the so-called 1%ers, I call them, the small political parties, who then decided to take this law upon themselves, or responsibility upon themselves, to go and monitor the actions or the behavior of various employees regarding their employment patterns. That, to me, is extremely dangerous, and it might just trigger another xenophobic attack in South Africa or violence in South Africa.
Right, and I'm wondering then, as you mentioned that point, Thembisa, which is a very important one around the exploitation of workers or asylum seekers or refugees that enter the South African borders, if there needs to be a bigger responsibility on government and related stakeholders to regulate the industry and not have the 1%ers, as you call them, going around and really just traumatizing people who are just trying to make a living.
Well, we expect government to lead in this regard. We expect the government to put systems in place. But the danger is to have these small parties going around and destabilizing our economy, because, as you know, foreign direct investment relies a lot on stability, particularly political stability in any country. So if you're going to have these small parties going around carelessly telling people to be vigilant of foreigners and going into small businesses in the townships and threatening the business owners, it's problematic, because most of their communication is unfiltered, and we are not quite sure at the moment what has been the impact of their dangerous and toxic rhetoric, particularly that of the two, Gayton McKenzie from the Patriotic Alliance and Julius Malemba from EFF. It has been extremely unsettling to be watching that, but I just wonder how that has been received by normal people, and to what extent has that threatened the investment that is currently in place, particularly in the townships where some of these businesses are desperately needed.
Yeah, and it's quite unfortunate, because we've seen studies, Thembisa, that show that economies around the world have actually grown and flourished because of absorption of foreign workers who bring in their own unique skill sets, which is exactly what we need here in South Africa. We don't have every single skill, so that absorption is actually necessary to contribute to the growth of the economy.
Indeed. I mean, we all agree that we need to prioritize our own people in terms of employment. And we all agree that the employers tend to exploit some of the illegal foreigners who come to this country by offering them employment, and getting away with some of the responsibilities that they will ordinarily have if they've employed a South African. So that's agreed. However, what's not agreed, and I think it is going to pose problems in the future, is when you start having these self-appointed monitors in the form of the EFF and the Patriotic Alliance going around demanding papers from employers, etc. That could lead us to a situation where South Africa once again will be losing potential investment coming to this country, because the impression that's been given is that it's free for all, including anyone who feels that there's a lack of law or implementation thereof, that they can take it upon themselves to go around and demand papers from potential investors and business people in the townships particularly.
No, absolutely. And of course, the unfortunate part of this, Thembisa Fakude, is the fact that all of this is part of politics. Everybody wants to win someone in the country's vote. And so situations like this are unfortunately unlikely to simmer down. But that will continue that conversation in the days to come. Thembisa Fakude, many thanks for your time this morning. Senior researcher for the Africa-Asia Dialogues, helping us unpack this notion that more foreigners than locals are occupying various industries in the country, including the hospitality industry.